The paradoxical era, 1968 to 1980. The paradoxical era begins with Richard Nixon, who was elected over Hubert Humphrey in 1968. Nixon sought reforms that provided jobs and income. During Nixon's campaign, he gained Southern support by promising to put a halt to the desegregation of public schools. However, surprisingly, once in office, he desegregated virtually almost all public schools. He also made major revisions in food stamp programs and health legislations to expand some health policies. Democrats and Republicans were surprised by the federal government's commitment to providing assistance to people that were at or near the poverty line. Nixon added benefits for the elderly via the Supplementary Security Income Act, removing the stigma of public welfare for them. During Nixon's presidency, he was able to implement a number of policies on the subject of social reform. In his first term, his reforms included the Supplementary Security Income Act, major revisions to the food stamp program, indexing of the Social Security program, revenue sharing, the consolidation of social services in Title 20 to the Social Security Act, the addition of a family planning program to the Public Health Act, assorted health legislation, development of affirmative action policies, and OSHA. He also added policies that led to the desegregation of almost all public Southern schools. In his second term, he enacted the Comprehensive Employment Act, the Community Development Block Grant, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and the Child Abuse Prevention Act of 1973. However, Nixon did become more conservative by the end of his presidency due to the national inflation. His successor was Gerald Ford. Ford's presidency was short and can only be described as a stalemate between conservatives and liberals over social spending, so very little policy was actually enacted. Ford's major policy became the presidential veto, which he used quite frequently to halt the spending increases proposed by Congress and to decrease legislation. Many of his vetoes were inevitably overridden by a Democratic Congress. Jimmy Carter followed Ford in 1976. Carter emphasized moral values and used his religious beliefs to gain support of some Southerners, while his disdain for political establishment appealed to the populist liberals. Carter stepped into a rather desperate situation, however. America was experiencing a gas crisis with the Middle Eastern countries while he was in office. This was coupled with an extremely high rate of inflation, which he battled by an extreme cutting of spending on social reforms.
Created using Powtoon.